Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Boardman
everyone.
Moya. We
Welcome.
do have a quorum, so we are set to start the meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Welcome. You beat me to it. Thank you, Marty. So we will officially call this meeting to order. I see you online. Oh, so in here, yeah, so we're good. So we officially called the meeting to order. So item 2, information only. Information items will be provided to the board in writing and not intended for formal presentation. Do any of my fellow board members, would they like a formal presentation on item 2A? Not hearing any, we'll go ahead to items 3. These are consent items. We can vote on these items all together, items 3A, 3B, and 3C. Can I have a motion to approve our consent items, please?
Move to approve.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. I have first and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Information, item 4. Information and discussion items will be presented verbally to the Parks Board and are for discussion only. No action will take place on these items at this meeting. Item 4A, Phoenix water supply.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Parks Board. The state of Arizona is preparing for upcoming water challenges. I've asked City of Phoenix Water Resources Management Advisor, Max Wilson, to provide a status to the board this evening.
Thank you, Marty, and members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak today. My name is Max Wilson. I am the Water Resources Management Advisor for the City of Phoenix. In that role, it's my responsibility to advise mayor, council, and city leadership on the city's most pressing water issues and help develop the city's water strategy. We're going to go through perhaps the most complicated issue the city is facing right now in an incredibly brief period of time. So I am happy to take any questions as we go. Before we dive into the details of the challenges that we're facing on the Colorado River, I'd first like to start by giving you just a little bit of background information on Phoenix's water supply. I do want to emphasize, as I say this here today, that this is for the city of Phoenix with a capital P, not other valley cities. Phoenix manages its own water and wastewater utilities. And if we were to talk about, say, the city of Scottsdale or the city of Glendale, any of the other cities throughout the valley, you'd see very different pie charts and demand charts than what I'll be showing you here today. So Phoenix is a almost 100% surface water fed city. What that means is that at its core, almost 100% of the water that we deliver to customers on a day-to-day basis comes from a river. Whether that is the in-state rivers that we use, the Salt and the Verde rivers, Salt River starting in kind of the Sunrise Ski Resort area and flowing down to maybe where you've been tubing in it over the years. The Verde River starting near the Prescott area and flowing through Camp Verde, Cottonwood, our upstream communities before joining the Salt River and coming here into the valley. About 58% of that water comes from those two rivers in particular. 40% of the water that we deliver to customers on a day-to-day basis comes from the Colorado River. The Colorado River, obviously, the large the large river that drains the southwestern United States, comes in through the Central Arizona Project Canal, where it feeds the northern and southeastern portions of our city, especially. And then 2% of the water that we deliver to customers on a day-to-day basis is groundwater. That's all the water that we pump out of the aquifers down below us. This pie chart suggests that we don't have access to much groundwater, but that's in fact not true. We manage our groundwater aquifers for not rainy days, so to say, for when we need them in times of drought. The reason we manage groundwater in that way for these times is that it's a strategic reserve that we can use, and we want to be able to pass on to our children and grandchildren because fundamentally it refills very, very slowly. The next graph next set of graphs I'll show you, maybe. It helps if you turn it on. The next set of graphs that I'll show you is a little bit about how water is actually used in Phoenix. I apologize if this is a busy graph, but I'll walk you through it one piece at a time. The first things that I'll direct your attention to are the big blue bars that are going up. These bars are population since 1990 in the city of Phoenix. It should come as no surprise to anybody who's been here that population has increased rapidly since the 1990s in Phoenix. The next line that I'll have you take a look at is the light blue line that overlays those dark blue bars. This is gallons per person per day. It's the average amount of water that a person uses in the city of Phoenix. And what you can see with this graph is that it peaked in the early 1990s. That's about the time the federal government adopted its first set of water efficiency standards. And since that time, per person water usage has gone down very, very rapidly throughout the city. This is true throughout the Southwest in general, but Phoenix in particular has seen very strong reductions in per person water usage as we've seen changes in landscaping, especially at single family homes, move more towards desert adapted landscapes. And we've seen much less grass and other water intensive landscapes than we had in the past. And now the logical question when we show you a graph of population going up and per person water usage going down is how do those two things balance out? Is water demand going up or is it going down? And what that you can see here is the third line, the dark blue line on the bottom, that is our total water production over the same time period. So this is every drop of water that we put into a water pipe, whether it came from the Salt River, the Verde River, or from groundwater. And what you can see when you look at this graph is that total water production peaked in the early 2000s and has not recovered back up to those levels. So we actually produce about the same amount of water today that we did in the 1990s, despite the very significant population and economic growth that we've seen over that same period. I go through all this level of detail to help establish kind of one core fact for you guys today, which is the challenges that we're going to talk about in the remainder of this presentation are not being driven by increasing demand. We actually do not see increasing demand across the city overall. What we see is stable demand. Instead, many of the challenges that we're going to talk about today are caused by declining supplies that are not producing the amount of water that they did in the past. So I'd like to now give you a brief update on Colorado River negotiations. I'll start by just giving you an update on the Colorado River itself in case this isn't something you've thought about much lately. That 40% of our supply that comes from the Colorado River is currently seeing the lowest flows in history. So currently we are looking at the lowest flow conditions on the Colorado River in at least 1,200 years. I say at least 1,200 years because that's based on tree ring data. The oldest trees we can find are 1,200 years old. It may in fact be worse than that. Just for context, the 1,200 years, in case you haven't thought about this lately, is an impossibly long period of time. 1,200 years ago, we were still 400 years from inventing knights in shining armor. That is the last time that we saw river conditions be as bad as they are right now on the Colorado River. Importantly, temperature, not precipitation, is causing this decline. If I make you a graph of total precipitation across the entire Colorado River basin, what you'll see is that precipitation is flat. We're actually seeing about the same amount of combined rain and snow that we've seen in previous times. What we are seeing that's changing though is that temperature is going up very, very rapidly. And what that means is that the same amount of rain and snowfall is not giving us the same amount of river flow because that rain and snow is falling on drier soils, it's falling on thirstier plants. And as you guys see in your parks, as it gets hotter, plants get thirstier, they need more water to be able to survive. And they're using more of that rain and snowfall up before it can get to us. Major reservoirs, which are Lake Mead and Lake Powell in this case, are at critically low levels. Lake Powell, which is the reservoir above the Grand Canyon, Lake Mead, the reservoir below the Grand Canyon, is currently only about 45 feet in elevation from being able to lose power production. What that means is that the water level in the lake is at risk of falling below the point at which water could be moved through the turbines to the other side of the dam, producing the power that we rely on to cool our homes and to maintain the diverse economy that we have here in the Southwest. If the reservoirs continue to drop past that point, which all indications are right now they will unless we change demand, we could reach a point called dead pool. What dead pool means, to put it simply, is that it is impossible to get water through the dam. That is because the dams work fundamentally just like a big bathtub. They gather water as it comes in, except for these bathtubs have their drains on the side, about halfway up. That's so that you can pull water in at the top and move it down through those electric turbines through the dam. If the water level falls below the drain hole, There's no way to get water through the dam to the other side. That means that you could hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, go across Silver Bridge or Black Bridge there, and there would not be much of a Colorado River, only the groundwater inputs that are coming from the outside. It also means if that were to occur, that you would go to the bottom of Lake Mead, and there would not be water going into either the Central Arizona Project, the All-American Canal, moving into the communities that feed our nation and that fundamentally are the basis of our lives here. The good news about that, to the extent that there's good news, is that the Bureau of Reclamation, the federal agency that operates the major pieces of water infrastructure in the Western United States, has said that they simply will not allow those outcomes to occur. And as such, they have declared a shortage in 2022, 23, 24, and 25. However, these shortages have not been sufficient to stabilize the system. We have continued to see water levels decline, and that includes shortages severe enough that we have effectively ended agriculture in Pinal County, where there is no longer the use of Colorado River water for agriculture. Similarly, I tell you the good news is that the federal government has said they will not allow the lakes to decline to dead pool. I will tell you that the federal government cannot make it rain. They cannot make it snow. All that they can do is reduce demand. And frankly, we are demand. All of us in our homes, in our businesses, in our parks across the Southwest, that is what the federal government has the ability to be able to curtail. The operating rules governing the Colorado River expire at the end of this year. They're negotiated on 20-year terms, and they expire at the end of this calendar year. As part of the process of extending these operating rules into the new period, the federal government has been completing a NEPA process, a National Environmental Policy Act process. This is necessary anytime that the federal government wants to take a major federal action. Obviously, redefining the rules for shortage on the Colorado River would be a major federal action. In the process of doing that, they have been required to release a draft of their potential future rules. You can think about it as kind of the pro and con list for all the different options that they are considering. In the process of doing this, they've told us a couple of very interesting things. The first is that according to their analysis of the situation on the ground, unless conditions improve, we need to cut water demand 60% greater than was previously anticipated. The current cuts that are being projected for the Colorado River are in the range of 2 to 4 million acre feet. For context, the Central Arizona Project carries 1.5 to 1.6 million acre feet. So we need to find 1.5 Central Arizona projects worth of demand throughout the Southwest to reduce. Secondarily, the Bureau of Reclamation completed a long and thorough analysis of what their existing authorities are. Who do they think they have the legal authority to cut? And because of a number of very arcane issues that I won't bore you with today, they came to the conclusion that the only people they have the authority to cut first is Central Arizona. This is because in exchange for taking funding for the Central Arizona Project in the 1960s, Arizona agreed to take all cuts necessary to stabilize the system. We disagree, I should mention, with this interpretation of the law. The Bureau of Reclamation recently received a 150-page letter listing all the ways that we disagree with their interpretation of this law, but it's an important element to consider that when they look at their own authorities, that's what they think they have the authority to do. The alternatives that they put on the table were insufficient to avoid dead pool. So even in the draconian types of cuts that I was just describing, across all the hydrologies that were analyzed, dead pool still occurred on somewhat regular bases, depending on the level of cuts that were analyzed. Even with that 2 to 4 million acre feet of cuts that I previously mentioned, it was not sufficient to stabilize the system across all hydrologies. So dead pool still remains a very real risk. And then lastly, the economic impacts and environmental impacts that we would see here in Central Arizona, if the Central Arizona Project were to come dry, were completely unanalyzed by the report. That was a major piece of concern that we had and that we made sure the Bureau of Reclamation was aware of, that we think it is laughable, frankly, to suggest that you would dry up the Central Arizona Project and then never analyze what that maybe potentially could cause environmentally or economically. So as far as timeline as to what the next steps will be, we are moving through the process right now very rapidly. In April, we will have a very good idea of what the snowpack in the Colorado River Rockies will look like. I will tell you that all trends right now are currently trending towards the worst year ever on record and the worst year by quite a bit. That will allow the federal government to complete their federal process for new operating guidelines defining who takes what cuts in what conditions in the summer of 2026. In August of 2026, the Bureau of Reclamation will come out with what's called a 24-month study. This will tell us how much water we will have in 2027. And beginning in 2027, we will see very large cuts occur. I cannot tell you today what the size and scale of these cuts will be. What I can tell you is that they will be very, very significant. It is simply infeasible to reduce the amount of water demand that we need to reduce in the Colorado River Basin to protect those reservoirs without making very significant reductions in water supply availability all throughout the Southwest, but in particular in central Arizona. Because of these reasons, we have been in a stage 1 water alert since June of 2022. Through our drought management plan, our water services director, Brandy Kelso, is authorized to make any and all changes necessary to balance supply and demand throughout the city. That means exactly what you think it means. A stage 1 water alert occurs when an insufficient supply situation appears likely in the future. That's when I'm here having conversations like this one with you, when we can see a problem coming, but it has not occurred yet. In a stage 1 water alert, we greatly increase our outreach and education. You maybe have seen the billboards mentioning the stage 1 water alert as you've driven home in the last couple of months in particular. And we help work with our customers and work with our elected bodies to help them understand what types of changes may be coming in the future. In stage 2 would be when an insufficient supply situation occurs. And I want to be really clear about what insufficient supply means here. This does not mean that you go to your tap and you turn on the tap and water doesn't come out. What it means is that the supplies we would normally use on a day-to-day basis to meet that pie chart that I showed you earlier are not available, and we've had to change our operating system to be able to meet regular demands. The way we would primarily do that in most cases is by accessing more groundwater, by bringing more groundwater into the pipes so that it can be distributed to customers. The downside to that, again, being that as that water is used, it will not come back for a very, very long time. And therefore, that is our savings account that we're burning. A stage 3 water emergency would occur, and we hope it never occurs, if it was necessary to directly reduce demand beyond what those backup supplies would be able to implement. This would be the moment where we are going to customers and saying, this is not a voluntary conversation anymore, but this is a mandatory reduction in water use that is necessary. And a stage 4 water crisis would only occur if additional needs were met to meet critical health and human safety levels at that, above and beyond what we did in the stage 3 water emergency. As far as timing of when these things could possibly occur, that will be highly dictated by what the federal government decides to do. Depending on the size, scale, and duration and timing of those of cuts will determine how the city reacts. That being said, I want to reemphasize again, the drought management plan authorizes the water services director to make any and all changes necessary to balance supply and demand. You are not at risk of going to your home, turning on your tap, and not having water come out the other side. With that, I'd like to make sure that you have my contact information in case you have any additional questions after we have our conversation here today. My email address is maxwell.wilson@Phoenix.gov. My phone number here is on the screen. I would appreciate the opportunity. This is literally my favorite thing to talk about. It's my whole job to talk about this. So if you have any questions, I will talk your ear off about it. With that, I'm happy to turn over to any questions.
Great, thank you very much. I'll go ahead and open the questions up to the board. We'll start with our board members online. Do you have any questions?
I don't. Great
Okay.
presentation.
Thank you. Any board members in person have any questions? Gabriel.
Thanks for the great presentation, Max. Could you go back to the graph that showed the water?
This one?
Yeah. So you talk about residential gallons per day, meaning the average resident is using less water over time. But the flat number is total water production, is that right?
Total water production. So all
So-
the water we put into.
So
pipes.
not, so residential, but is there a graph of residential water production? Is that also flat or is that actually going down even though the population's going up?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's actually going down.
Okay. And so the reason why it's flat instead of completely going down is that industrial and commercial and other uses of water must be going up.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the board, we are seeing increasing demands in those sectors. However, their per square foot or per dollar level of demand, we're actually also seeing declines in, just not at a sufficient enough pace to be able to offset the additional growth that we've seen.
Great. And then as far as parks are concerned, which is what we would be the most concerned about, I understand the city was working on some sort of an interconnect between the two systems. Should there be a huge shortage on the Colorado River system, there would be a way to serve the parts of Phoenix that are currently served by that system through using water from the SRP system to get it up to the north part of the city. What's the status of that project? And does that help solve distribution problems within the city?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yes. So you're referring to our drought pipeline. The drought pipeline was a project that we had to work very closely with the Parks Department on. As you may recall, it was a very large pipe that was installed largely through the Dreamy Draw recreation area. We greatly appreciate the flexibility that the Parks Department showed us throughout that process, and that this board showed us throughout that process. As it was obviously long and challenging. That being said, the drought pipeline is perhaps the single most critical piece of infrastructure that we have in our system, because as you alluded to, it allows us to utilize water from the Salt and the Verde River systems in the northern portions of Phoenix, where otherwise it physically could not have gotten to. This Phoenix is the only valley city that has a similar type of infrastructure, and the foresight and investment that that mayor and council and that this group put into thinking about allowing that to be built ahead of time will fundamentally improve our ability to withstand the challenges that we are mentioning here. I will mention there are some limitations to the drought pipeline. In particular, the legal, how do I say this? Some of the waters in the Salt and the Verde River system are directly tied to the lands associated with Salt River Project and therefore can't be delivered to the northern part of the system. Other waters can legally be delivered to the other parts of the system, and that is what we will be delivering in that time. Thank you for that question.
So just a couple more. Is the system completed now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so thinking about parks citywide, if for some reason we had to go into some sort of severe restriction on watering, let's say, it could be applied in a fairly balanced way as opposed to having to shut down or up north very severely, and the rest of the city would be not affected or affected in a lesser way. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was going to acknowledge you here. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Max, I'm sorry that I am not there in person. I was at a water meeting in Tempe that ended at 4:30, so unlikely to be able to make it. I appreciate your presentation. I want to note that the Parks Department it was some years ago, but the Parks Department took great strides forward in looking at watering efficiencies in the parks. And I remember at the time thinking, this is really good because we need to be able to defend every drop of water we use and show that we're being as efficient as possible. But I guess I'll just say, as someone who also could talk about water and do all day long, just like Max, that when I think about the messages that are coming out now, that
if people aren't using their grass, then consider having a desert adapted landscaping. Don't, really making people think about what they're doing in their yards. I think parks take on additional importance as the places where people can go to kick a soccer ball around or play frisbee. So in a city, in a Phoenix that is moving toward cuts, the biggest cuts we've seen in Colorado River water, new demand management challenges, I think we need to give consideration to the communal green spaces and the importance of making sure that we have places where kids can run around and play soccer and have some areas like that. So when I think about the future, I think about the importance of making sure that parks have the water they need. I guess
Mr. Chair.
I'd love to hear Max's response to that.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Porter, always good to see you. I'll put it just quite simply. I have 3 boys. They're all under 11. I have one very small patch of grass in my backyard that I water very efficiently. And we have baseball fields that are on the other side of the street. There's no more important places in my life than those 2 places, right? And as such, it would certainly be our intention as we move through the drought management plan to be able to preserve our quality of life and frankly thrive as a city through the challenges that we're going to face, rather than just try to survive the challenges that we're going to face. That will require creative and thoughtful implementation of the drought management plan. And I think one of the things that I'm very proud of our drought management plan and in containing is that it allows us the flexibility to be able to work with the community to make those types of choices, rather than going through a very prescriptive drought management plan that would tightly bound our hands on what types of responses that we would make.
Rick, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Sarah, were you done? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I just was saying, thank you, Max. That's a really good, a good way of thinking, a good framing. I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Go ahead, Rick.
So this discussion brought one other question to my mind. And I don't see Dr. Hondula here tonight, but so you may not be able to answer it. But when I walk by a park, it's a lot cooler than when I'm just walking down the street by a building. And I'm just curious about the trade-off between watering less and the urban, the mitigation of the urban heat island effect. You said the major problem and issue is heat, not rainfall. So, grass and parks and trees also help to reduce heat. So how do you balance those 2 in this conversation, or has there been study of that?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the short answer is that is our challenge, is to balance those 2 components. I think that's always been the challenge of living in a desert city, is determining how we are going to get the most value out of every drop of water that we do use. I will say we work very, very closely with the heat office to ensure that we are putting out strong landscape watering guidelines, that the trees that we are planting here as a city are being watered as efficiently as possible. One of the things that we've seen in the water department and their studies of many of these issues is that almost everybody radically overwaters their landscapes. And that there's significant amounts of vegetation that we could maintain while still saving quite a bit of water along the way. The last comment that I'll make, and I think it's really the strongest part of the Office of Heat Response and Mitigation's most recent update to their heat plan, is the emphasis on putting trees where and other cooling elements in the places where they give us the most benefit. I won't speak for the Office of Heat Response and Mitigation, but I think their plan says very clearly that our goal is not to plant as many trees as possible, it's to make our city as livable as possible. And we can do that by making sure that we're putting the right trees in the right place, that they're watered efficiently and responsibly to at least remove as much of the possible tension between those 2 pieces. That being said, if we are trying to make sure that we get the most cooling per gallon of water, if that's where we're trying to get to, I will say I would much rather stand under a mesquite tree when it's 120 degrees outside than in the middle of a soccer field. And so we do get more of a cooling benefit generally from trees than from grass. So certainly grass does have a benefit, especially right after it's irrigated.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
There we go. I just have one question related to uh, the position of the state of Arizona and water. I think it's fairly well known that the Governor Hobbs' office has retained counsel outside of Arizona for a potential litigation involving the Colorado River, and I think the allocation amongst the states in that group. If there is litigation, and let's say, you know, people saying, oh, this could go all the way to the United States Supreme Court, what impact, if any, does that have on the city of Phoenix's drought management plan? Or is that something that's locked in solid, and whatever happens with at a state level would not impact that plan?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, that is an excellent question. The short answer is that how we would respond to our drought management plan would depend on how that legal action moved forward. So for example, would we be suing to try to increase the amount of water that is being released to Arizona? Or are we being victims of a suit towards Arizona from somebody thinking we got too much water? Did that suit move forward in a way that ended in a preliminary injunction that determined how much water was actually going to be delivered to us in a given year? So that's a very long way of saying we would need to react dynamically to what is actually occurring on the ground in that lawsuit itself. That being said, the one thing a lawsuit most certainly does is it greatly increases uncertainty, right? As we are moving through a suit, we'd be thinking about how will the preliminary rulings come out? What would the injunction be? Who will win this overall suit? Will it take 5 years? Will it take 10 years? Those will all be questions that if litigation occurs, we don't know the answer to. And as such, I think it makes it much more incumbent on all of us to be prepared for worst case scenarios during those types of periods, because we don't know how any individual case could go.
One last question. I worked for Salt River Project for 34 years. I can't talk about water all day. I appreciate those of you that can. Quick question is, you know, as I said, I worked there for a very long time, and we were talking about cutbacks as far as I can remember. So my question is, at what point are we going to sound the official alarm that this is serious? You know, we for years said, oh, we'll get there, we'll get there, we'll get there. But I just want to know, at what point will the city have a plan? And does the city have a plan for internal departments to do their part as well in cutting back?
Mr. Chair, that's an excellent question. I would emphasize for any of you who were watching the Olympics this last year during the gold medal hockey game, there was a commercial ran by Central Arizona Project showing a dry CAP canal and saying that the intention of the federal government is to wipe Arizona off the map. Those their words, not mine. If that's not ringing the alarm bell, I'm not sure what is. That being said, Phoenix's position has been that we maintain very significant backup supplies and an active drought management plan for these exact purposes. We put that water underground and we built additional storage on the Salt and the Verde River systems so that we could use it in times like these. So to that point, I would say Phoenix does have a plan. Our plan is all the work that we've done up to this point and putting our drought management plan in place to allow us to be able to thrive through this period of shortage. To your specific question about how is city planning working together? We operate a team called the Drought and Shortage Response Team, very conveniently named DESERT. If you do the acronym, that's why you keep the conservation kids around. We work closely in that group with all of our departments that manage facilities to help them develop their own drought response plans tied to the city's drought response plan. I'm really thankful for the leadership that Marty and his team have showed in our drought and shortage response plan meetings thus far. And we hope to have those department level drought response plans in place as we move into this summer towards a final record of decision. Obviously, it will be incredibly important if we are telling our residents and customers that they need to save water, that the city itself is doing its part. And I'm confident that through that process, we'll be able to say we're doing.
Thank you. I have another question online. Emma, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the presentation. I do have a question as in regards to what are the conversations, what is the work with the Office of Planning and Development on changing the building codes here in Phoenix in order to allow the utilization of gray water in the homes? So can you talk a little bit about that? What is, if anything, going on regarding that?
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm very happy to say that the city just completed its building code update. We were able to implement a number of new water conservation efficiency standards into the building code. Additionally, and outside of that, we've been working with the Office of Environmental Programs to develop a residential rainwater harvesting guidebook that would allow residents who want to be able to reuse rainwater, especially for landscaping in their yards, to be able to do so. So we've collaborated really closely with OEP throughout that process. And that's certainly work that I'd like to see continue moving forward. Ultimately, as I was saying to our Chief Sustainability Officer right before I came over here today, more rainwater falls on the city of Phoenix than our total water demand of the city of Phoenix. And our ability to put that water to use is a resource that will be important to us as long as we stay within the legal restraints placed on how water can be appropriated in the Southwest.
Great. Thank you. Sarah?
I just love hearing all that, but I think it's important to point out to the board that Phoenix is currently reusing all of the water that is put into the wastewater treatment system. So gray water recycling at home would basically reduce the supply of water that's already being recycled, and Max is leading important efforts to make sure that we're doing the very most we can with effluent.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you, Dr. Porter. Yes, I think there's a very significant difference between rainwater harvesting and reuse and gray water reuse. Ultimately, as Dr. Porter stated, all of the effluent that comes to a wastewater treatment plant is reused. And so reusing that in some other setting is not creating new water that we would not otherwise be using.
Great. Again, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We'll move on to item 4B, the 2026 Parks and Recreation Phoenix Place Summer Camps.
Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board, Assistant Director Brandy Barrett will introduce this item.
Thank you so much, Marty. Chair Moya, members of the board. Spring is one of my favorite times of year because we get to come back to the board and give you an update on the annual Phoenix Place Summer Camps programs. Each year, the Parks and Recreation Department offers safe and affordable summer programs for youth and families across the city. The Phoenix Place Summer Camp experience is based on fun. Our talented team spends months preparing and developing a schedule filled with arts and crafts, interactive and engaging activities and games, field trips, nutritious food, sports, and much more. I would like to recognize a few key team members for their leadership guiding the development of this year's Phoenix Place Summer Camp program. Deputy Parks and Recreation Director Danielle Poveromo, Recreation Coordinator 3 TJ Penkoff, Recreation Supervisor Mike Francis, and I would also like to thank our Parks Communication team members Talia Galaviz and Stephanie Chavez for their support and getting the word out about these great programs. These are but a few of the many team members who have put their heart into building this spectacular summer program, and I'm pleased to turn the presentation over to Deputy Parks and Recreation Director Danielle Poveromo.
Thank you, Brandy. Good evening, Chairman Member Moya and members of the Parks and Recreation Board. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight to talk about the fun and exciting program we have coming up this summer with the Phoenix Place Summer Camps. Summer break is a most favorite time for a kid, a true rite of passage filled with adventure, discovery, and pure joy. And this year at the Phoenix Parks and Recreation Department, we're proud to offer our community a safe, affordable, and most importantly, fun summer camp experience where every kid can thrive. The Phoenix Plays Summer Camp is an indoor program facilitated at 26 Phoenix community and recreation centers spread throughout the city. Camps vary in size, but can accommodate 40 to 150 kids every day. Just imagine. Camps vary in size. Our participant age is 6 to 12. Our schedule follows the school district calendar where that particular center is located and operates over a 10 to 8 week period from May to July. And the camp runs generally from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Many of our sites also offer a pre and post specialty camp, sports camp for week overlap to provide additional coverage. During camp, participants are split into groups based upon their age, and then they rotate through a series of activities to keep them engaged and having fun throughout the day. We pride ourselves on offering a 1 to 15 staff to camper ratio. We're also proud to offer an adaptive camp at the South Mountain Community Center. This location provides an all-inclusive experience for all ages and abilities. Centers also offer volunteer opportunities for those participants that have aged out of the general camp program. So teens ages 13 through 17 are offered a volunteer experience that's based on leadership, building skills, staying active and engaged over the summer. In 2025, we had over 150 teen volunteers participating in our program. This year, registration opened on March 19th at noon. We received 1,300 registrations, filling multiple sites quickly, some filled in under 5 minutes, and placing campers on a wait list. But I'm happy to report we have a number of centers that still have availability. Based on the previous year's summer feedback, we implemented greater registration flexibility, including weekly and daily options, so caregivers can pay for the summer coverage that they need. We're also proud to offer pricing options that fit every budget from free to $80 a week. Our summer programs are community-based, and marketing efforts are reflected through those efforts of community-focused marketing through flyers, communicating with local schools, neighborhood association, the city council districts, and those that are currently participating in our Phoenix Parks and Recreation program. We also utilize social media, email blast, and flyers. And our Parks communication team has implemented a new Phoenix Plays Camp website. This is a one-stop location for all of the summer camp locations with a direct link to registration options. The QR code shown here on the slide will take you to that website and provide all of the information. In preparing for tonight's presentation and doing a quick look, we received another 44 registrations, but as I mentioned, we still have space available. The Phoenix Plays Summer Camp popularity is a testament to the program's affordability, flexibility with drop-off and pickup anytime between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., fun daily activities, field trips, and engaging activities and programs. So how does Phoenix compare with summer camp offerings with other Valley organizations and cities? As I mentioned, the Phoenix Plays Summer Camp offers a price point to fit everyone's budget. While our cost range is free to $80, most of our 26 sites are well below the cost comparison. As you can see here on this particular graph, Phoenix comes in as the most competitive pricing among other Valley cities and nonprofit organizations. And no matter what site you choose, your child will be provided with a safe, fun, and engaging day, and including 2 field trips. And at the top of our price point at $80, that equates to $16 a day for care for 11 hours, Monday through Friday. So it's a really great deal. Phoenix is proud to offer an affordable summer camp and pleased to keep kids engaged and safe throughout the summer months. As we all know, food is a vital resource for us all, but especially children, and when they're active at summer camp. To help ensure kids are fed, we partner with local school districts and community food programs to provide meals that are delivered daily to each site. This is a free service, and kids are provided a nutritious and balanced breakfast, lunch, and snacks that keep them fueled and regulated for the day and provide an opportunity to follow the school lunch schedule. And when needed, kids are provided with additional food for the weekend until we see them again on Monday. So, as you've gathered, our Phoenix Plays summer camp experience is all based on fun. And we're proud of the opportunities that the staff has created in terms of field trips, ensuring that they're having water and pool days to stay cool, recreating game shows, bringing in guest presenters. We're proud to bring in other city departments, including the Phoenix Fire and Police, as well as our in-house park ranger program, who love educating the children about the Sonoran Desert and the flora and fauna that you would find in that environment. We know how important communication is to both parents and campers. So before camp begins, each site hosts an orientation to review the program, expectations, and ensure staff have up-to-date contact information and answer any questions. This also allows campers to see the center, hopefully make some friends or see some friends from previous years, which tends to be something that our past participants recognize when they return. During camp, each site sends weekly newsletters, email blasts, letting campers know of upcoming activities, our food menus, swimming reminders, and any field trip or pertinent information. Feedback is also a critical component to our success for the Phoenix Plays summer camp. At the end of every summer, we conduct a survey of both parents and campers to find out, how did we do? How did we stack up with your expectations? As you can see from this slide, the reason for selecting the Phoenix Plays summer camp primarily is based on location, followed by price, then our staff, and they had a friend attending. And then you can see to the right that the child found the program fun and enriching. We scored very high, as well as that the program met expectations. As you can imagine, our team is busy finalizing activities, purchasing supplies, coordinating food, gearing up to train the hundreds of staff that it takes to facilitate our camps. This is a heavy lift for the team, but they pour their hearts into providing a safe, fun, and memorable summer, and pride themselves on creating the best experience for participants, teens, staff, and let's be honest, especially our parents and caregivers. The summer months can be long, but the Phoenix Parks and Recreation Department is proud to provide summer care for our community. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Amazing work. Any questions from our board? I have a quick question. I know last year we made a suggestion, I think I remember, about registration and how fast. Did we notice any changes? Obviously, you said 5 minutes. Is that what it took on one?
Chair Member Moya and members of the Parks and Recreation Board, yes, that's correct. We don't have a way to slow that down, and I'm unfortunately, but happy to report, we're really popular. And I think that's based on that price point, and that the city of Phoenix goes above and beyond to provide a really great experience for campers. We did implement weekly registration and daily drop-in rates based on what we heard in previous surveys that we conducted with our participants. If having children, you remember days of daycare, you paid for the whole month, whether you were there or not. The city of Phoenix and the Parks and Recreation Department, we're proud to provide participants just to pay for what they need. So if a family's going on vacation, they only need a week, cousins coming in from town and they want to go to camp too, we can accommodate that request.
Is there a waiting list that's created, or is it?
There is.
Okay.
So once registration opens and a camp fills, you are able to join a wait list, and then our staff filter through that wait list if there might be any duplicates or any issues that occurred. We had a queue this year on our website, our registration website, and that was new. But again, we had a lot of people signing in at noon prepared to register. So.
Great. Again, thank you to you and your entire staff. I'm especially glad to see that we are able to feed the children, to continue that through the summer, Have a great summer. I know you'll be busy. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to item 5, discussion and possible action. Items are for information, discussion, and possible action. So item 5A, please.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board. Yesterday, during the formal City Council meeting, the Mayor and Council directed City staff to take the following actions in response to recent reports alleging misconduct by Cesar Chavez. The 3 items are rename the city's March 31st holiday as Farm Workers Day. Number 2, initiate the formal process to rename all city facilities currently bearing Cesar Chavez's name. And finally, removing city-installed street signs and other signage honoring him. Just a reminder, the Parks and Recreation Department oversees both Cesar Chavez Park and the Cesar Chavez Community Center. The Parks and Recreation Board has approval and authority for all names for parks and recreation facilities. Naming considerations include whether a donor has contributed land, the full land value, or at least half of the development of renovation costs, and multiple donations may be combined to meet required thresholds. Individuals considered for naming should be widely recognized heroes at the local, state, or national level, and names may also reflect the identity of an existing City of Phoenix park or facility. The board may additionally draw from community suggestions, contests, community recommendations, or term-based naming agreements. As for the renaming standard and process, renaming is reserved for extraordinary circumstances such as geographic name changes, names deemed offensive or inappropriate, or major contributions that were previously unrecognized. Tonight, staff requests the board approval to begin the formal renaming process for Cesar Chavez Park and the Cesar Chavez Community Center. With that, I'll be able to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. We do have a couple of comments, community comments or questions. First one is, we'll go online for Dan Penton, Penton. Dan, are you on the line? Dan, are you on the line? Third time's a charm. Dan, are you on the line? Can you hear us? Are you possibly muted, or? You might be muted, Dan. We will come back to Dan. So we'll go ahead and move on to Jerry Van Gass, who's here in person. Hi, Jerry, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Like Max, I could talk for hours about the icon. I'm going to mention Jesse Owens, the Olympic track star, the American that won 4 gold medals, 1936 Olympics, in front of Adolf Hitler and his Nazi friends. Jesse lived his last 9 years right here in Phoenix. He gave back. He spoke at practically every school. I've talked to people, thousands of people through the last 18 years since I was entrusted with his medals to be the caretaker. And, it kind of it's upset me. And I remember Calvin Good was able to convince Jesse to lend his name to the first emergency care center south of the Salt River back in 1978. And Jesse said, "Of course, you can use my name." He says, "It's a great cause." But nothing's ever been named after Jesse except a 1/4-mile road, Jesse Owens Parkway. Tucson has a huge community park named after him shortly after he died at the U of A hospital. LA has a huge regional park named after Jesse. Ohio, the state of Ohio, where he went to school at Ohio State, has a state park named after him. So I think it's only right that we name the existing Cesar Chavez Park after Jesse Owens, and it's on the same street as the clinic baseline. It's perfect juxtaposition. And the real irony, I didn't even mention it last night because it's too mind-boggling. Cesar Chavez Day is March 31st. When he was born, Jesse died on March 31st, 1980, and then laid in the Capitol as a citizen, which is, I don't know of any others that did. Thank you. And if you want to see the medals afterwards, I've got them.
Thank you, Jerry. Are we good, Dan?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
That's quite all right, Dan. We can hear you and go right ahead, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. So I just want to address the renaming of Cesar Chavez Park. I would be advocating for the restoration of the previous park named Alvord Park after in a relation to Edgar Apperson, who's a pioneer in the automotive industry. But it was originally named after Gilbert Alvord in 1975 to honor him because he willed the parkland, 396 acres, to the city of Phoenix. And I think 40 of that went to Phoenix Union High School, and a small portion went to the site where the Vista del Sur School is at. But the 396 acres encompasses the Aguila Golf Course and the Cesar Chavez Park. Without that generous donation of land, we might not have the park and the 2 schools and the golf course today, which has been a significant gain in every way possible for the city. So I would propose restoring that, because there was a 1993 decision where the site was renamed Cesar Chavez Park, and it was under the violated the Parks Policy 3.3, which would grant priority to land grantors. While the park's names was stripped from the century body of water, the lake still remains with Alvord's name on it. But that's not really the true provenance of the park. So the name Cesar Chavez was placed on the park through a process marked by it was political maneuvering by the then councilman Solomon Lita, and so it has there's a lot of more history behind the land, and a lot of connections to some great contributions to our country, to our neighborhood, specifically with the 25 some year relationship the 2 men had together as his father and stepson or foster son. As I said, Edgar Apperson was his name, and one of the primary pioneers of the gasoline powered automobile. The first car that was
Thank you,
ever
Dan, for
powered
that
is
information. Your 2 minutes have expired. Thank you. Any questions from the board online? Any questions here from the board? Go ahead, Rick.
Just a couple comments and questions. First of all, thanks for the presentation, and what an unfortunate and sad thing for us to be needing to go through this, and we absolutely need to do this. And I'm glad the city council did what they did very quickly. I understand that they did actually already take down today the plaza sign and the street signs. They worked very quickly. It looks to me, I was thinking about, well, how quickly can we do this? But there is a very deliberate policy that the prior boards have adopted in terms of the process of making a change. And I was quite surprised to see that there's actually a process for unnaming, if you will, in there as well. So I think, I think your recommendation to initiate the process makes sense, and I certainly would support that. I guess I have a couple of questions. First of all, I have a request based on Mr. Penton's reminder to me that it used to be called Alvord Park, and I was here when the park was renamed. I would like to understand the history of that renaming, and if the staff could make sure to brief us, if we launch this process and you come back, I want to make sure we understand what the issues were surrounding the change, not so much why it was named Chavez Park, but why, or what was the consideration of the board at the time to remove the name Alvord Park, particularly if it did indeed, as Mr. Penton suggests, violate some policies. So I'd like some analysis of that, I guess. And then I would like to understand two additional things. One is, how long does this process normally take? We need to balance the desire for speed with the importance of public input. We've had two suggestions tonight. There may be a number of others, and I've heard lots of, the mayor and council quickly renamed the holiday, but there were a lot, there may be a lot of input regarding if we rename this park, what to rename it to. So I'd like to understand your outreach process. And then secondly, I just get my questions all out now. Secondly, I saw an interview on television this weekend of an artist who produced a sculpture that I believe is part of Phoenix Public Arts portfolio, but it's sitting in the park. It's a sculpture of Cesar Chavez. And the artist was making a suggestion to melt it down and recast and do something else, whatever. Interesting for an artist to say something like that. But I just want to understand how that artwork plays into any decisions we make, or is that completely the jurisdiction of the Arts and Culture Office?
Sure, Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board and Board Member Naymark, 3 items you asked about right there. So the Alford naming, we did already receive an inquiry about that, so staff is working on that. The outreach, with your direction this evening, we are ready to immediately start that. We can come up with a plan, communication, timeline, and bring that back to the board in June. And then, yes, you are right about the art piece. That is the jurisdiction of the Arts and Culture Department. My understanding that has already been covered as of yesterday. So,
just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, what was the resolution of that? You said it's been covered.
Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board and Board Member Namer, yes, the Arts and Culture Department has already covered that monument with whatever, a sheet or something. That's what I heard today.
Okay, great. Well, when we do discuss this in the future, it'd be nice to know what the disposition of that is or would
Certainly.
be, because it's obviously in the park. And then there's also a proposed recreation center in that park, I believe. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board and Board Member Naymark, that is a proposed senior center.
Oh, it's a senior
that will
center.
be
So
built
again,
out.
that's not our worry. Okay. Because I know that was also proposed as Cesar Chavez.
Everything in that
Center.
park is my
Yeah.
worry.
Okay. Great. I'm sorry. I think that answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica, go ahead.
Question, thank you so much. In looking at the policy for the renaming and unnaming, it does talk about no formal action to be taken by the board until after a thorough public notification and hearing process. But it also does include that the living next of kin shall be queried as to their wishes regarding any request to change the name of a person or family named Park. Would that be how would that go about as far as whose responsibility, let's say it's to move forward with commencing the renaming, whose responsibility does it lie to reach out to the relatives next of kin of Cesar Chavez and obtain their input?
Mr. Chair, members of the Parks Board and Board Member Fatinos, that will be the responsibility of the Parks Department to reach out to the next of kin.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, a couple of quick questions. Yeah, I guess I'm the process guy, and the process is there for a reason, and it's working so far. The only thing is, I think the greatest haste here was for the board to give approval for staff to start the process. However, I don't want this process to go on. I said we can do it April, probably bring it to us in May. That would be my request of the Parks Board. I know that's going to be kind of fast, but I think the sooner we can do it, the better. But again, a thorough process. And my other suggestion is that, we keep on talking about an individual name. I would also like for us to maybe not have a name, like Baseline Park or something like that, for that to be a suggestion as well, because that area is a great area. It's a beautiful area. And, it might not warrant a name of a person. It might be something that's more appropriate for that area. So that is my only suggestion. And so, yeah, those are the only two issues I have. So if there aren't any other questions, I would like to look for a motion for the board to direct staff to begin the formal renaming process for Cesar Chavez Park and Cesar Chavez Community Center. If I can have a motion.
I move.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
might,
sir.
I just realized that I misspoke. I know it's March and the next month is April.
Right.
So we will bring that back in April.
April. Okay,
Yes.
good.
Okay,
As
thank
long
you.
as it's a thorough process. As you know, this is what the board appreciates, is that everyone has the opportunity for input. Thank you. Great, thank you. Call to the public. We welcome citizen input. However, items brought to the board's attention cannot be discussed unless they are listed as an agenda item. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to requesting staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for further consideration. And let's see, I'm checking. Tanya, we don't have anyone for that. Thank you. Ooh, save me. So my report. All right. Desert West Experience. I see what you guys did with that. That's so clever. The Desert West Experience is happening tomorrow, March 27th from 10 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. at the Desert West Community Center. Guests are invited to enjoy arts and crafts, Easter theme activities, and egg sighting, egg hunt. Snacks and refreshments will be provided. Pecos Park Kids Triathlon. Come join us for the 5th annual Pecos Park Kids Triathlon on March 29th, 2026 from 8 a.m. till noon at the Pecos Park at 17010 South 48th Street in Phoenix. Guests are invited to enjoy a morning to cheer on the youth while they swim, bike, and run through fun age-friendly courses designed specifically for kids. So now I open up to my fellow board members. Any comments or requests? Great, thank you. Marty, it's all yours.
Mr. Chair, members of the Parks Board, we'll start our director's update with Assistant Director Todd Shackelford.
Good evening, Chairman Moya, members of the Parks Board. Last Friday, the department opened 11 splash pads early after unseasonably high temperatures prompted the city to offer families a safe way to stay cool. From March 20th through May 22nd, these splash pads will operate on a limited weekend schedule, Friday through Sunday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. before returning to full daily operations on May 23rd. For the 24th year, the largest amateur skateboarding competition in the U.S. returned to Desert West Skate Plaza, March 21st through the 22nd. Hosted by Cowtown Skateboards, the Phoenix AM event brought together 158 amateur skateboarders from 12 countries and 20 states. It drew nearly 2,000 spectators. And the Northwest Division staff supported the weekend by managing security, parking, and site maintenance, ensuring the event ran safely and smoothly. The competition highlighted Phoenix AM's international reach, the strong coordination between recreation and maintenance teams, and Desert West Skate Park standing as a premier venue for major skateboarding events. Construction at the new Lone Mountain Park officially began on Tuesday, marking the long-awaited start of the project. Neighbors have already expressed their excitement as work gets underway and have shared their anticipation for the space to become a vibrant recreational destination. The park will include multiple amenities such as sport courts, sand volleyball, dog park, ball fields, restrooms, and a network of desert trails with exercise stations. Together, these features will create a welcoming place for families, athletes, and outdoor enthusiasts to play, stay active, and gather.
Thank you, Todd. Chair Moya, members of the board, 2026 has gotten off to a hot start. You may have noticed that the National Weather Service issued an extreme heat warning for March 19 through 22, marking the first time an extreme heat warning has been issued in the month of March. In accordance with the Parks Board policy, trail access was restricted to Piestewa Peak, Camelback Mountain, and select trails at South Mountain Park. The team in the Natural Resources Division and our communications staff quickly reacted to ensure the public was aware of the closures before they came. The recent installation of electronic gates and electronic message boards were used to inform the public in the days before the closures, as well as the actual days of closures. I'm also very excited to share with you that the Piestewa Peak renovation project received the Crescordia Award in the Natural Environment Preservation and Design category at the 44th Annual Arizona Ford Environmental Excellence Awards ceremony just last Saturday. The Piestewa project ran from 2016 to 2025 and began with a public outreach effort and continued through construction phases that started with the Summit Trailhead and continued through 3 additional large trailhead phases. As part of the project, 4 new fully accessible restrooms were constructed, in addition to new picnic ramadas and updates to several historical ramadas. The Piestewa Peak project was recognized for its thoughtful landscape design that restores native habitats, enhances ecological health, and creates sustainable, water-efficient spaces that support local wildlife. Through active conservation measures and biodiversity protection efforts, the project safeguards sensitive ecosystems while improving long-term resilience of the mountain preserve. The success is reflective of the strong collaboration with the community partners and agencies, ensuring enduring environmental benefits for future generations.
Before I go into my director's update, I just want to recognize that we have some special guests in the audience this evening, although it looks like a few of them have left. But joining us this evening is Dale Larson, the former City of Phoenix Parks and Recreation Director and current ASU Professor of Practice and Honors Faculty Director of Community Relations and Engagement. That's a long title, Dale. And the students from the class, Managing Tourism and Leisure Services from ASU. A fun fact that I was in that same class at ASU West in the late 90s, and Mr. Larson was my professor. It is my understanding that students are required to attend a public policy meeting, and we were honored to have you here tonight. Also, congratulations to you students that are graduating this May. Next week is going to be very exciting in Phoenix. We are proud to host the 2026 NCAA Women's Final Four on Wednesday, April the 1st. As part of our legacy project, the Washington Activities Center received upgrades to support the major event. These upgrades included a refurbished gym floor, new bleachers, new scoreboards, updated wall pads, fresh paint, a new computer room, a teen room, and a resurfaced outdoor court. So we're very excited about that. From April 2nd through the 5th, Phoenix will welcome athletes and fans for the tournament, along with free downtown events such as Tourney Town, the women's Final Four bounce for youth 18 and under, and Saturday, the concert at Hans Park featuring Kalani. Also very happy to announce that we have 2 new members of our management team. Lance Gray was recently appointed to the Parks Development Deputy Director, where he will oversee our 5-year capital improvement program. Lance joined the Parks Department in 2015 and has served in several key roles in our department. And then finally, Greg Light was recently appointed to the Special Operations Deputy Director, where he will be responsible for our aquatics program, forestry, specialized maintenance, and of course, golf. Greg joined the City of Phoenix Parks and Recreation team in February of 2018, where he's been managing our golf program. So please help me welcome Lance and Greg. Mr. Chair and members of the Parks Board, that concludes our director's update.
Thank you, Marty. Before I officially adjourn, again, a big thank you to the entire staff for preparing all of us for this meeting. And to the board members, look at us 100% again, 2 months in a row. I can't stand it. This is awesome. Thank you all. I seriously appreciate everyone. Thank you. Have a great, month? See you all next month. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Thank you.